January 6, 1956. McMurdo Sound, Antarctica. A caterpillar. D8 bulldozer rolls across a temporary ice bridge at walking speed. A lighter tractor crossed the same bridge 5 minutes earlier without a single crack. The crew on the far side can see the ice starting to sag under 30 tons of steel. They scream. They wave. The driver can't hear them over his own engine. He clears the bridge and drives 20 feet forward. Then the ice opens up and swallows him whole. They watched him try to climb out. He almost made it. That machine is still down there, somewhere between 600 and 2,400 feet below the surface. 58 days later, Antarctica took a second D8 in the exact same way. The driver's name was Richard T. Williams. He was construction driver 3rd class in the United States Navy, 23 years old. That is nearly everything the records tell us about who he was before that day. No hometown appears in the files. No family details appear in any archive we could find. The Navy recorded how he died in precise detail. They barely recorded that he lived. What we know is that he volunteered for Operation Deep Freeze, the most ambitious military construction project ever attempted on ice. The mission was to build permanent American bases across Antarctica before the International Geophysical Year in 1957. They needed roads, airstrips, and fuel depots across a continent where winter temperatures drop below -70 degrees. They also needed men willing to operate heavy equipment on frozen ocean, across hidden crevasses, and through storms that could bury a building overnight. The machines they chose were not standard bulldozers. They were SDA-8 LGPs. Stretch D8 low ground pressure models. Only 21 of them were ever manufactured. Built by Caterpillar in Peoria, Illinois, specifically for polar operations. The tracks were 54 inches wide instead of the standard 22. Each machine weighed between 30 and 35 tons and rode a 15-foot blade with 286 horsepower under the hood. Starting one in Antarctic cold meant 30 minutes of blowing hot air under a tarp before the engine would even turn. -40 was considered normal. Anything colder, and you were pushing your luck. 10 of these machines shipped south aboard 3 Navy vessels, escorted by icebreakers. The men who operated them were from Mobile Construction Battalion Special. 178 seabees were handpicked from over 3,000 volunteers. They trained by building prefabricated huts inside industrial refrigerators back in the United States. On January 6, 1956, Williams was hauling the first load of construction materials from USS Wyandotte across the sea ice toward Cape Evans. The plan was to build an airstrip on solid ground that could support flights to the future South Pole Station. The route crossed a crack in the ice that the crew had bridged the night before. As a precaution, they sent a lighter D2 tractor across first. It made it without incident. No sagging, no cracking. The convoy moved forward. Williams started across the bridge in his D8. Halfway over, the construction crew on the far side saw the ice beginning to deform. They shouted. They waved their arms. The diesel engine roaring inside that enclosed cab meant Williams never got the warning. He bounced over a 10-inch drop at the edge of the bridge, a drop that meant the ice was already bending under the weight, and kept driving. 20 feet past the bridge, the surface gave way. The tractor and everything attached to it dropped straight through. The escape hatches and side doors had been locked open as a standard safety precaution. Williams was seen partway out of the cab as the machine sank. He was climbing. He was almost free. The weight of 30 tons of steel pulled him down into water that was somewhere between 600 and 2,400 feet deep, depending on the source. His body was never recovered. The machine sits on the bottom of McMurdo Sound to this day. If you want to hear what happened to the second D8 and the 22-year-old who was driving it, like, and subscribe. Williams's death changed the entire plan. The Cape Evans airstrip project was permanently abandoned. The icebreakers tried to force a path through and failed. Instead, they built aircraft facilities directly on the ice near Hut Point and named it Williams Air Operating Facility. Today, 70 years later, it is still the primary American airfield in Antarctica. Every ski-equipped C-130 that lands at McMurdo touches down on a runway that exists because Richard Williams drove 20 feet past a bridge, and the ice gave way beneath him. 58 days after Williams went through the ice, Antarctica took another SD-8 LGP, and the story behind this second loss is the one that will stay with you. Max Ray Kiel was born September 20th, 1933, in the timber country of Wallowa County, Oregon, a place they call Little Switzerland of America. His father, Oscar, was a boss logger. His mother, Roma, cooked at logging camps. Max and his two sisters, Norma and Irma, spent school years with their grandmother in the town of Joseph, with a population of 800, and summers working ranches and timber in the deep Oregon woods. In October 1952, Oscar Kiel was operating a Caterpillar log skidder in a steep canyon near Wallowa. The machine threw him, and he was crushed by its own steel tracks. Max watched it happen. He was 19 years old. The family moved to Joseph permanently. Roma took a job at a grocery store, 6 days a week. Max found work at the local sawmill. His sister Irma said he hated every minute of it. Facing the draft and desperate for something bigger, Max enlisted as a seabee in 1953. He deployed to the Philippines for 18 months, building the Subic Bay Naval Station. His buddies called him Fat Max. He sent money home religiously, saving for a cattle ranch back in Oregon. When the call went out for volunteers for Operation Deep Freeze, over 3,000 seabees applied. Roughly 100 were selected based on mental aptitude, physical toughness, and specialized skills. Max was one of them. Going to Antarctica in 1955 was closer to going to the moon than to any job site on Earth. Walt Disney sent 2 camera crews along and designed the expedition emblem himself. That is how big this was. Max landed at Canaan Bay on Christmas Day, 1955. His primary job at Little America 5 was keeping the supply road open with his D8, an endless battle of Max and his cat versus the Antarctic snowfall. Max usually won. In late February 1956, he was reassigned to a tractor train under Chief Warrant Officer Victor Young, hauling fuel and prefabricated buildings inland to establish supply caches for the future bird station, 600 miles away in Marie Bird Land. The tractor train left Little America 5 on February 27, 1956. Progress was brutal. Bad weather, whiteout conditions. A week out, roughly 110 miles east of base, the convoy entered a crevasse zone. The official operations summary contains a line that stops you cold. This area had been crossed and recrossed by lighter vehicles without the least suspicion of crevasses. Weasels and snowcats had driven through safely. Their lighter weight never stressed the snow bridges enough to reveal what was hiding underneath. Only the 30-ton mass of a D8 could trigger a collapse. And Max Kiel was about to drive his D8 straight over one of them. Like and subscribe. Chief Warrant Officer Young found 4 crevasses stretching across the trail. He probed. He blasted suspect snow. He filled them in. 2 D8 tractors were then pushing snow into a crevasse on a section of trail that had already been probed, blasted, and crossed multiple times. Max Kiel was operating one of them. He was backing up, preparing to push another load forward, when the snow beneath his tractor gave way. The D8 plunged backward into a V-shaped crevasse. The walls narrowed as the machine fell. The cab was crushed by the closing ice like a vise. Max Kiel was killed instantly. He was 22 years old. 2 of his closest friends went in after him. a seabee called Tex Gardner, the dirty bearded Texan, and another named Big Ed Edwards. They roped up and descended 80 feet into the crevasse. They found that Max was already gone. The commanding officer sent a dispatch to Admiral Dufek that is one of the rawest messages in Navy records. Tractor train lost tractor in crevasse at cache number 2. Max R. Kiel killed. Body not recovered. Admiral, we felt so bad about it, we just sat down next to that 300-foot hole and cried. Navy Chaplain Peter Bull was hauled out to the site to hold a memorial service. Max's fellow seabees set a flag and a marker over the crevasse. Within a week, Antarctica's snowfall had buried everything. The marker, the flag, the crevasse itself. No one now is certain just where Max and his cat are buried. The commanding officer ordered the tractor train to dump its remaining cargo and return to base. The season was too far advanced. Crevasses were everywhere. They could not be detected by ordinary means. And the death of Max Kiel had cast a demoralizing gloom over the entire crew. They arrived back at Little America on March 10th. Father and son. Oscar Kiel died on a caterpillar in an Oregon canyon in 1952. Max Kiel died on a caterpillar in an Antarctic crevasse in 1956. 3 years and 10,000 miles apart, killed by the same kind of machine. As one local paper later wrote, unlike his dad, Max remains there in Antarctica, frozen forever at those controls. So where are these machines now, 70 years later? Williams's D8 is exactly where it fell, somewhere on the floor of McMurdo Sound, between 600 and 2,400 feet deep. Too deep for any recovery attempt in 1956. Too deep for any practical recovery today. The ocean has claimed it permanently. Kiel's D8 is a different story. The Ross ice shelf moves. It flows toward the sea at hundreds of meters per year. Little America 5, the base where Kiel was stationed, went to sea in 1987 when it calved off as Iceberg B9. The entire Bay of Whales was wiped out. Given the flow rate since 1956, Kiel's tractor has almost certainly already gone to sea. Max Kiel and his Caterpillar D8 are most likely resting on the floor of the Ross Sea, carried there by the ice itself over 7 decades. Williams Field is still fully operational. It sits 7 miles southeast of McMurdo Station on the ice shelf. 2 snow runways serve the field, each 10,000 feet long. Ski-equipped C-130 Hercules aircraft land there every Antarctic summer. The field has been relocated 4 times as the ice shelf creeps seaward. Every building sits on sleds so it can be moved again. 70 years after a 23-year-old seabee drove 20 feet past a bridge and disappeared, every flight into McMurdo still lands on a runway that carries his name. On Hut Point, overlooking McMurdo Sound, there is a statue called Our Lady of the Snows. It is a figure of the Virgin Mary inside a curved iron frame topped by a cross. The Seabees dedicated it on January 6, 1957, exactly 1 year after Williams died. His friend David Grises played taps on the ice. Nearly 4 decades later, in 1995, Grises returned to Antarctica. The statue had been refurbished by Carmelite nuns in New Zealand. At the rededication, David Grises played taps a second time. Then the crew turned the statue to face north, out over McMurdo Sound, toward the spot where Williams went down. At Little America 5, Admiral Dufek named the airstrip Max Kiel Airfield. Back in Rhode Island, a gymnasium at the Seabee base in Davisville was dedicated as the Max Kiel Gymnasium. In 2003, they demolished it. Veterans and the people of Joseph, Oregon fought to save it, and they lost. Max's sister Irma could barely speak about it in an interview years later. The reporter wrote that he could hear the tears through the phone lines. She said she was glad her mother Roma had not lived to see that day. 2 machines, 2 operators, 58 days apart. One is 2,400 feet underwater. The other has been carried to the ocean by 7 decades of moving ice. The only things left above the surface are a statue on a hill and an airfield on a glacier. And the names: Williams Field, Kiel Glacier. That is how Antarctica remembers the men it takes. If this story hit you the way it hit us, tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from tonight? If you want more stories of machines lost in the most extreme places on Earth, we have you covered. Click the video on the screen now.